Not you popping to the stuff. What is up, everybody? Sorry for the delay. There was a little bit of a communication thing beforehand, but welcome to our next recap of Dark Side of the Ring. Last week's episode of the Junkyard Dog. There was not a new episode this week, but because I was on my way to Florida during this time last week, we are now gonna do Junkyard Dog's recap review on this week. So I am Katrina, host and creative in Cat We Trust, and I am here with my twin, my partner in crime, my tag partner, everybody's favorite duo, Shayna. How are you today?
I'm good. This is a very heavy episode, so it's a little sad to me, but I'm good. How are you? And hello, Ghosty. How are you?
I'm well. Um, it definitely was a sad episode. It was. But let's get to it. We're not gonna make because it was a sad episode, and not that Dark Side of the Ring is not sad, but I feel like, in this regard, it was one of the sadder ones. Not that anybody is ever really happy. A lot of times it's bad. Some weird stuff talking about. But let's jump right into it. And so the episode does start off where Jim Ross pretty much says that Junkyard Dog, how he was pretty much like the hero to the working class, a hero to the fans in New Orleans, and that even Jake the Snake, Roberts even said that New Orleans was Junkyard Dog's like town, and if you if you had to wrestle him, you were pretty much scared to death. And that cops had to even escort the guys that he wrestled because that's how big of a deal he was. And so Junkyard Dog started as a rookie in Calgary as Big Daddy Ritter. And apparently, as you know, back during this time, there was like a unsaid quote of how many black wrestlers you could have. And so, he explained how, bad it was for how the white promoters would run stuff back then. And, we can still question about that now. It's a little better, but the promoters don't always do the best things. And so Bill Watts did take a chance on Junkyard Dog when he was Big Daddy. And then he was JR even mentioned that Bill was kind of compared to Vince Lombardi, like he was a head coach, a bit of a disciplinarian, and it was kind of his way or the highway. And then we kind of get introduced to Coco B, who said wrestling was a white man's sport, and that Bill gave Junkyard Dog a chance to make some money, and it wound up blowing Mid-South Wrestling wide open. So one of the things that they were discussing, JR said that one of the rules Bill had was if any wrestler got into a bar fight and lost, they were fired. And so Ernie, who I think was, I guess, one of the booker, and said he was the one who recommended Junkyard, said that Bill didn't know that Junkyard Dog wasn't a technical wrestler. And so he wound up clicking with the audience, and they was able to find matches that kind of went along with his style. They just knew that Junkyard Dog was a former football player, and that they played that off his strength in his offense. And so I guess before I get to the next part of that, what were your thoughts on like the opening as far as they introducing us to Junkyard Dog?
It was clear he had a lot of charisma, and it was just, it's sad. Like when you look back at it now, especially as a person of color, like a Black person, like it's like this is so just ignorant. This is just so ridiculous. Like, oh, you can only oh my God, he's taking a chance on a man who's Black. Like it just, to me, in my mind now with everything, it just seems so ridiculous that it was such a big deal that, that it's like I just, racism, it sucks. It's ridiculous. And it's just, yeah, it's absurd. And I also remember, like, when you said thing about going to the bar and if you get beat up, And I feel like I distinctly remember when we did the Graham Dynasty episode that was something that Eddie Graham had said as well too. So I guess that was just like a running thing through those territories. Is like, listen, don't be coming up in here getting beat up because you're making us look bad. Okay. Yeah, but that's my early thoughts on everything.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely think that was kind of the vibes back then, like Katie getting beat up, but it was also like how they took wrestling really, really seriously back then too. And so they talk about Ted DiBiase being like the perfect villain, and says that he was Ted was coached by the Funks and Bill to kind of highlight Junkyard Dog, and says there was ways to kind of emphasize what he did well and avoid what didn't. And that because Junkyard Dog and Ted were like had faith in each other, they wound up becoming best friends. And I believe Junkyard Dog was also like the best man at Ted's wedding. And that people were surprised that Bill Watts was even like behind him, but JR said it had to do with the fact that he liked money, which I guess makes sense. And so then we get to another scene where Jim Cornette kind of talks about the history of the Municipal Auditorium, and it was his Junkyard Dog's house every Friday night. And he talks about the feud between the Freebirds and Junkyard Dog. I think the gimmick was that they had Cream instantly removed hair, and they wanted to make Junkyard Dog bald. But it then got in his eyes and made him got him in his make him blind, something like that. And it was said that if that happened, like the birds would be like dead, blah blah blah. And saying that kind of saying that the birds would be dead men after this. And so there was also, I guess they explained something about a matchup where it was supposed to be like a dog collar match. Said that he supposedly said the story was Junkyard Dog was sitting blind at ringside with the free birds coming down, and a fan jumped over the railing and pulled out a massive gun and told Junkyard, "Don't worry, I got them." And then Junkyard Dog said he was conflicted for a second, as if he grabbed the gun and everyone know that he could see. And so it says supposedly the guy got there, the cops got there in time to the gun down to the guy down to the ground, but they were saying that the story might not have been exactly that way, and so I'm not really sure how much of that was true. And then they also mentioned about him becoming a main event star in Mid-South, and said he was like the Black Hulk Hogan, which I mean, like, I didn't really like the comparison. I'm gonna be honest. It just really, like, I'm gonna call him Black Hulk, like, really, this is we gonna go, guys. I mean, I guess so. They called him pretty much like he was a Black Hulk Hogan, which I don't really know how I feel about that comparison, just because let's not. And for some reason, they show, I guess, Teddy Long. I'm not sure what it's about him going one-on-one with the Undertaker, but he was mentioned pretty much that everybody loved Junkyard Dog. And I mean, it is crazy. I like I said, I wasn't there, and so sometimes you hear some of these stories, he said, she said, or stories are told, and we're not always sure if things are not embellished a bit, or if things are not just kind of dramatized. But so Tony Atlas then says that Junkyard Dog became huge, and he was very generous with his money and his time, and he knew where he came from. And then they talked to his nephew, Jarvis Woodburn, who showed some photos of Junkyard Dog as a kid. And you kind of see him like to get a tour of the house, some more photos, which I thought was really nice. That was a nice touch. And then they also talk about the Junkyard giving his dog, taking his chain off and giving it to the kid in the front row, that he was always very humble, always very kind, and everything else. And so what were your thoughts as far as like his background personality? Because I thought that was like really nice. Like, okay, all right. That's pretty dope. What were your thoughts
I think
on
it
that?
just added to me feeling more sad about how things ended up, because it seemed like, his head was in the right place until certain things kind of took control of it. And just seeing how he wanted to give back to the community and, be there for people and just be a positive force, and specifically in kids' life, like that was such a W for me. Like, I think that's so important. And also just seeing the old photos of him, like it just it made it sad, and I think you could really see the hurt, and like just from how things go. What I was a little bit like shocked about was the whole the weapon thing, where he said that he was like right there, like, I got you. I'm like, I miss that a little bit. Don't you miss when people were that invested? Like, damn, like
Yeah,
sometimes I'm like, man, we need that back. But I feel like in the digital era, that's just not possible for wrestling. It's just
yeah.
not possible in the digital era. It's like near impossible. Um, yeah, and then also the whole thing of him like, oh, my favorite color is green. Hey, that's a nice response. But you know what else is a great response? Who gives a crap what color he is? That's a great response too. Actually, even better response than my favorite color is green. That's just something I want to say.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like the social media era does definitely change how we look at wrestling now, and it's kind of hard because it's like everything's kind of out there. It's like out there, like even if somebody's in a feud, but then they're like hanging out, and it's like, oh, okay, I guess like kind of throws it off. Back then, it was like the feud was real. It was like this is what it is, like to the point. It got like real serious at some point. So yeah, and so we then start hearing about the fact that it says that the taking life on the road as a wrestler started to take its toll, and we learned that he has a daughter named Latoya. She was daddy's girl, and they were kind of explaining how it can tax your relationship with your kids, your wife, and that when you're on the road, JR mentions about being on the road, a joint could be solace, which led uh to Jake and Junkyard Dog kind of experiment with drugs. And he said that there was a bottle of pills that had like 1,000 hits of speed in it, and he did like the downers and then the sleeping pills, and that was like where it really started you know where it started kind of, I guess, getting like weird for him. And so he was also, I guess, talking about the fact that women paid sex to have sex with Junkyard Dog, and that they got free beer. And Tony Atlas said he liked it because he got like free beer. He got to get women. He said he told a story about there was a night where 3 women came in and each paid $100 to have sex with the wrestlers. And he told the ladies that Tony doesn't want to get laid, but likes playing with feet, which I kind of had to like, and then in the situation when it was about to have like a thing, the girl's husband came in and wanted to fight Junkyard Dog, and he wound up beating the crap out of him. And they was also explaining that Junkyard Dog made like $2,000 a week and was given a car to drive. And in 1984, Vince McMahon had his eye and kind of offered to pay him double of what Bill was paying him. And he says they asked like how did he feel about how he felt about the news about him leaving, and he said he just wishes he had been there to see his reaction. And so I think they say something about supposedly there might have been something racist said about that from Bill, who denied it, but he probably did. Like Carlos, I think he did. I definitely think he did say something racist, because it was already like that time period. It was also like nobody even believed he would back him in the first place. So like he did all this backing him, and then he just leaves, and it's like, okay. So I think he lied. I think he did say something. But what were your thoughts, I guess, leading up to that?
I pressed it and then it muted itself, I swear to you. So I just have to say this because I definitely hate feet. That foot stuff. I know people say don't kink shame, but I will kink shame you if you say that you're doing stuff with feet. Like, I will. Okay. That's my line. Um Also, why would you want to fight Junkyard Dog? Like, honestly, just get a new girlfriend at that point, please. That's probably the better way to go. I would go that way. In terms of him going to going with Vince, obviously. I mean, hey, you got to do what's best for you at the end of the day. Like, you have a family to feed, like, I get, loyalty and stuff, but it's like, if you want me to, okay, pay me more then. Pay me, can you double this? Or can you match this? Like it's simple. Like, people have lives to live.
Yeah.
Like, I can't pay my bills with loyalty, unfortunately. I've tried in the past. They turned me away. You can't. You need cash. And in terms of him with, the drugs, that was a really it sucks because it's like it starts out as just something to relieve, and then it just turns into something else. And it's just a shame that it just got a hold of him like that. And it's sad that it's something that's so common within, that business, because, ways a lot of times it starts like a ways of trying to deal with pain, pain management, and it kind of snowballs. So it's really sad that he felt like he needed to go to that, based off of the lifestyle he was living, through wrestling.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And it's like I said, I do think he said it. He said he did. I think he said it, and I guess that's true. It's one of those, like, you think somebody is a friend, but it's like they're holding favors, because why would it be like I did all this for this person and now they're leaving? And it's like, well, he like that. I don't know. And so they were saying Coco was pretty much saying he was surprised that he seemed so upset about losing Junkyard Dog, and even to the where he was saying that they tried to replace him. I think they tried with George Wells, Brickhouse Brown, the Snowman, and just that they were good. And they said Butch Reed was also good, but he wasn't, the Junkyard Dog. He just wasn't. And so JD does go to WWF. He's welcomed him, and Vince, for the most part, marketed him like a superstar, and said that financially it was the best choice he made, saying that just off his action figure alone, he made like 6 figures a quarter just off the action figure, which again, make you money. And said that everybody wanted Hogan's spot, and while he had some excess, it just never got to the length, to the height it was at Mid South. Um, and that, he also said Coco said that he thinks Junkyard thought that Vince was going to push him the way Bill did, and then he thought he let Louisiana and his fans down. And he also mentions about the fact that Hogan was on top, and then you had people like Rock, Rocky Johnson, Pedro Morales, Mr. Fuji, the Wild Samoans, people that he was pushing, but once that was Vince Senior, but once the Vince man that we all really know, he it was Bret Hart, Roddy Piper, Hulk Hogan, and that back then you really didn't push the black wrestlers like that, and that's unfortunate. And then Ted said he did wish Vince McMahon did use Junkyard Dog like Bill did, but they had Hulk Hogan. And then they start talking about him being addicted to cocaine, and that was a bit sad. Sorry guys, freaking New York. And he would do it on a plane and anywhere he could. And then Tony tells a story about them going to a TNT show, and he made the limo driver go to the hood so they can get dope or like get drugs or whatever. And he asked the limo driver, can he smoke? And the driver thought it was like cigarettes, but then he pulled out the crack pipe, and everybody started getting like freaked out about it. And then they wound up being late, and Tony wound up missing his match as well. And it's like, you can't. And then something along the lines was said that you can't do that to the white man and keep your job. And he was like, it was to the point where he was out of control with it, where like he was doing it at MSG in front of everybody. And he said, I think Jake said something about you can't throw stones at everyone because everybody was doing drugs, but he was like, he never got addicted like Junkyard Dog did. And they said that the reason why he thought Junkyard Dog was fired because he was showing he kept not showing up to his events. And then Coco mentioned that you can't just like, you don't get a 2 weeks notice like a regular job in WWE, they just actually leave. And so it's I guess that's when it really started to spiral, and I think that was the sad part. And we already know, even recently, while they are pushing a little bit more, look how long it took for half the things we got, honestly. And so that I thought was a bit sad. And so they start talking about him working in like the indie scenes and small gyms, and then he gets an offer from WCW where Bill Watts is in charge. And they said everybody was happy to see him, but JR said he didn't think his top days as a top guy were over. But Junkyard Dog didn't really see it that way, that he was bloated, and people wanted to help him, but he needed to carry his share of like the his everything. And his nephew did say that he was a little annoyed and upset that every story we heard about him mostly was about him doing drugs, and not, and he said something about everybody has their demons. And I think that was kind of sad. They mentioned something about a match he had at an indie show, that it was like a 2-minute match. He was kind of incoherent, took the money, left. And then he would, he went outside and got high. And I thought that was pretty sad. He mentioned Junkyard Dog working at part-time at Walmart, and said he also hit, Tony Atlas said he also had kind of hit some low points in that, the same low points as Junkyard Dog, and that, they was talking about him not like showering, shaving, he was like homeless for a while. And then they was able to kind of get him back on track. And it was unfortunate also because they was saying that even with the money that he was getting, he wasn't able to hold on to it. And it's obviously because of like a lot of the drug use. And yeah, that I think was kind of like, that was sad. It was unfortunate. So what were your thoughts, I guess, leading up to that?
Yeah, no, that was really sad. And I just don't understand like how it could change so much. But I guess it's like, different people at the end of the day. Because I remember they were kind of lining up saying, with Vince Sr., he made sure to have someone who was Samoan, someone who was, of Asian descent, someone who was African American. Like he made a point to make sure it was mixed. Like when he went down the line of everyone he named, it was only one white person, and that was Bob Backlund in the lineup. But then you go to Vince, and it's like, it's very light. It's very light. And it's just like, it was just no type of like difference. It was just the same thing. And I don't understand why he wasn't able to capture that. You had someone who had so much charisma, just like oozing out of them, and just like printed money, and you had all these things, the cartoons, the freaking action figures, and you just somehow wasn't able to find a way to capitalize. But then I do understand like maybe things behind the scenes of him and his, drug use getting worse and worse, and, not much you can do about that. And it was just sad, when he said the whole thing of, you can't do the same thing as a white wrestler. Like there's different rules. And it's just like, that's interesting. The whole thing of him being in the limo and doing like smoking crack, like it just was sad. And it's sad when you see that happen to someone. It's like, what can you do to help? How can you like stop them? Like, I don't know, because you can't say maybe if someone would have tried more, because you don't know what people might have said or how they would have went about it. But just wish it could have ended differently, and someone could have really helped him, because he had so much talent, he had so much to give. And obviously thinking back to the stuff of him, with how he was so giving to children and his community, like it just makes it even harder of a pill to swallow. Like it's really sad.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it gets to a point where it got like even more sad, because they now were saying like Ted DiBiase said he called him one time in the middle of the night and said that he was supposed to be speaking to some kids and told him to not do what he did. And he said that was like one of the last conversations he ever had with him. And then they was talking about just trying to get to his daughter's graduation. And he did miss the graduation and apologized for being late. And he got to meet his nephew's son, and that was the last photo he took. And said when he was heading back out, his nephew did notice there was puke in the car, and that he said he didn't need to sleep. He just was going to head home, and that was the last conversation he had. And so he did tell everybody he'll be back for they explained, I guess, what happened. And apparently, unfortunately, like June 1st of 1998, he wound up falling asleep at the wheel, and the car flipped. He didn't have his seatbelt on. The car did flip, and I think his nephew even said that he was probably too big for the car, and that the cause of death said head trauma, and that was unfortunate. Because it just seems like such a sad end. To miss the graduation, and then it's like you probably should have rested. You clearly wasn't feeling well, and you still got behind the wheel. Anyway, you drove like 9 hours to try to make a graduation that you didn't make, and then it was really sad in that regard, and unfortunate. And then they even show, which I think really bothered me, I guess, when they was showing the grave site of Junkyard Dog, and then they showed his daughter, who was only 31, and to know that was Daddy's girl, and he was like that. I was like, damn, like that as a parent, 31 is a really young age to pass, and for her to go as well, and it's like such a sad end for her dad. It's unfortunate. And while he was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2004, I don't know. I felt like what I would have liked for them to like it was sad. It was sad, but I think my issue with this was they focused so much on the fact that he was an addict. And while I know it's Dark Side of the Ring, and I know that was unfortunately what ultimately ended his life, it was also but he was also opened so many doors, for African American wrestlers, during that time. And I wish they would have focused more a little bit on that. It would have been nice. And again, I know he probably wasn't always in the best space, because again, he was an addict, and addicts don't really that is a disease, and you're not really in your best for family. You're not doing the best for yourself. And so but I just wish they would have just gave a little bit more of that, and not so much on the fact that he was just an addict. And I felt like they, he did create the fact that there was prejudiceness. Like, he really helped try to bring that to the forefront in wrestling, that people loved him regardless. The fact that I just felt like there were things that they could have done a little bit better, that I thought they would have, instead of just everything on the fact that, okay, well, he was an addict. And I think I understood the nephew kind of saying, he wasn't the only one. He definitely wasn't in wrestling. As you know, a lot of these wrestlers, especially back then, had a lot of issues. And it just because of the fact that while he didn't hit it the way he should have hit it in WWF, he did where he was. He really did. And so that, I was like, damn. And so it's unfortunate. It is sad. And I do wish that they would have gave a little bit more outside of the fact that he was a druggie. We that was obvious. I wish they would have just gave us more. Did nobody not know anything else that he did? Was there anything he liked to do that wasn't just wrestling? Just give us a little bit more. And I wish they would have done that. And so that was sad. And that made me sad. And again, the daughter, 31, that hurt. I just, nobody should be going that early. And so that was heavy. So yeah. What are your, I guess, for the end of all of this?
No, I totally agree with what you're saying about the whole fact that I feel like the talk of drugs was so present throughout the entirety of the episode, where they could have, maybe at the end dropped it, said, okay, this is how it happened, you know, and then kind of talked about it a bit. But it was so present throughout the whole episode. It felt like his career and his impact in, like, you know, wrestling as a black man and what he did for black wrestlers was like took a back seat to, let's just talk about the drugs for the most part, you know. I didn't really like that. Like, you could have just left that to the end and said, well, this is how things went, yada yada yada. But talk about everything else that he did, because there was so much positive that you kind of just let fall by the wayside, and you focus more on petty dramas with, you know, Bill Watts and, you know, his drug addiction. It just kind of took away from everything. It was very sad, and it's just a shame things panned out that way for him, because I think he did so much. And, you know, the same thing for his daughter. Like, I just it just seems so unfair sometimes, life, like, you know. And it's just like you can't even fathom to like wrap your head around it. And I just hope that, you know, I mean, I know that they're, you know, with each other, and they're, you know, comfort each other, and it's just sad that it had to be that way, because it could have been a totally different way, if just things just went differently. And just so many things, like, it just sucks. And then like the whole thing with him being inducted, it's like you wait till after to give him his flowers, when you could have done so much more before. It just made me sad. I'm like, for goodness sakes, Dark Side of the Ring, you're driving me crazy. Please. You are beating me down. Like, I am getting beat. It's like, here's another. I mean, I already saw the title for the next episode, so I know it isn't done. I know it. This is just, oh gosh, I can't take it.
Yeah, it's Dark Side of the Ring. It's like I said, like, we know it's gonna be sad, but I just feel like there's ways to tell the sad parts or the dark parts, and then kind of maybe sprinkle that in. Some niceness in there. But yeah, it definitely was. Like I said, that I was already sad, but the daughter thing that really bothered me. As a mom, I like, I just, you don't ever want to think of your kid like going, I guess, and that's unfortunate. But yes, the next episode I believe will be on is I think his name is Adrian. I feel like that's his name. And so that should be cool. Isn't it, I think, Adrian Adonis? I feel like I'm saying his name wrong. It's gonna bother me. Let me look really quick. Yes,
You
it is
said it
Adrian
right.
Adonis. Yes. Okay.
You said it right.
So that's the next one, and and so hopefully, I actually don't know too much about Adrian, honestly. So this will be like my intro to him. And so we'll see. I'm hoping is, but it was definitely like, damn, shit, this is tough. But yeah, guys, thank you guys for, I'm sorry we went from like talking shit on NXT like an hour ago, and now it's all sad. My bad, guys.
Yeah.
But this again is Dark Side of the Ring recaps. But we appreciate you guys for hanging out with us on both shows. Shay, tell everybody where they can find you and what you got going on.
You can find me at Shay Sawyer _ on most platforms. And as I said before, you can find me at Shay Sawyer Was Here on Threads, the new move. We're done. Muskie, you've done enough. You've done enough, Muskie. We're moving to Threads. And then you can catch me on Thursdays, obviously, for 5 p.m. Women's Wrestling Army. And then 7 p.m. for the NXT After Show. You can also catch me Tuesday, making my return to Unpopular Reviews, NXT After Show as well. So that's directly after NXT, as you know. And you can catch me I'm going to try and get back into streaming more. I'm probably going to stream tomorrow around...
See, sorry. Like,
I'm probably going to stream tomorrow at around 7:30. If anyone wants to pop into my Twitch and talk to me about everything or whatever. And also, this is my Finn Balor shirt. Isn't it great?
That's
great,
stupid.
right?
I like that.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, for me, in Cat We Trust, I'm also on Threads. That's how you pronounce it. But name is pretty much the same as on Instagram. It is pretty much off of Instagram. Easy3, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and whenever Twitter really kicks the bucket, then I guess I will be getting rid of the account. But until then, because there's still a lot of shit on there, there's still a lot happening. I don't think everybody made the move yet. We'll see what happens in like 2 weeks or so. If there's still the move, there's still the thing, because we'll see. But otherwise, yes, you can catch me on Mondays for Women's Wrestling Talk, Talking Wild with Steph and Emily. And then on Thursdays, NXT with Shay, talking about what happens on NXT. And after that, for Dark Side of the Ring next week, which will be, again, Adrian Adonis. Follow my channel. I have a whole bunch of stuff on there, nerdy, wrestling, all that shit. So follow it. And again, guys, we do appreciate you guys paying us. Sorry, got like really sad, but again, this is Dark Side of the Ring, so we apologize. Didn't want to ruin your day or make it sad, but we do appreciate you guys hanging out with us as always. We love you guys, and we will catch you guys next week. Bye, guys.